Hey, welcome to Matt in Exile. And this is Steve from Sweet
Howdy.
Home Freedom.
That's
All right.
correct. Exactly.
Now, today we're going to be talking about what we're going to talk about inflation.
Inflation, how to deal with it,
Yep.
just to understand it a little bit better.
All right. Tell me, what is the best way to understand inflation and how it works when it comes to the economy?
Well, in listening to so many different, economists or pundits or, listening to what the government's saying, which is totally insane, the different ways that they say that. But, the simple idea that Peter Schiff used to talk about was the old definition. If you look in dictionaries from 50, 60 years ago, inflation was simply increasing the money supply, which nowadays we don't have money. We have currency, 100% fiat currency, and they just print it in computers. So the more currency they create, the less value each unit has. That's a simple definition. And then what effect does that have? Well, when, some items used to be when the economies of scales were able to create a product in a way where it was cheaper to manufacture it, it became, they could actually produce something cheaper than from the first invention, then the prices should get cheaper on a particular unit. But in terms of that basic idea, it sometimes gets distorted because there are other market forces out there. At the moment, you have the Federal Reserve messing around with interest rates, whereas the market, which comprises of hundreds of millions of people, if not billions of people, interacting on so many different levels. And this is what Ludwig von Mises, who was the other guy that used to promote that? I forget what his name was, a little short guy that was so amazing to listen to. His name will come to me. These guys, understanding Austrian economics, which is basically, simplifying economics, you spend more than you have, you go broke. If you want to have, stability, you have to save and use less than you create. And then you're, if when bad times happen, when we either get hurt, sick, a business collapses, we have an economic downturn, we have war, we have a catastrophe, you're okay. That's conservatism, conserving, using less than you have. Here where I'm at in Southern California, and as well as being in the military, you prepare. You're prepared for any case scenario, which is wise. It reduces stress. But, like when I was living in Germany recently, if you're paying attention to what Christine Lagarde or Mario Draghi used to say in the ECB, they were berating Germany for having a surplus. You should spend it all, and make the economy grow. And, it helps with jobs, spend the extra money that you have. And that's just plain stupidity, So in terms of inflation, to look at Weimar, Germany, 100 years ago, and I actually have one of those notes, they printed their currency into oblivion. Yeah. Venezuela is going through hyperinflation right now. They printed the currency into oblivion. Zimbabwe, most people know the hyperinflation there. Argentina has had 4 hyperinflations in the last 50 years. I actually was down there with the Navy, with the ship 30 years ago, and their currency notes were these tiny little notes to save on paper with tons of zeros on them. So, if we just go back to gold and silver, constitutional money, you can only create so much of it. It's a hard money system of gold and silver was more stable because you had to dig it out of the ground. You had to use a lot of energy, and you could only create so much. And, the more they created, it kept up with the population. But currencies, and especially, I wouldn't say cryptocurrency because they're sort of being used as currencies, the central banks want to go to a digital um, currency where they will control it 100%. And if they've ruined things and gotten everything wrong so far and have just created messes, they're going to do it again. But to have total control will be like China. China is when you walk across the street with your phone, you immediately get debited, a fine if you cross the street in the wrong place. So we don't want that.
Yeah, that's the only way they can actually implement ESG laws. That they're planning. They already started implementing it a little bit, but they're mostly implementing it with oil companies. It's making it harder for them to actually get loans through banks and stuff like that. But in individual purposes, it's harder for them to do it without having a digital currency. If you have a digital currency, at that point, you can use social credit scores in order to control people's habits, how they spend money, and so on and so forth. And that's
the World Economic Forum recently talking about carbon credits.
Yeah.
Well, that if we spend or drive too far, we have our bank account shut down.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to buy any more gas because you burn too much. But they had 1,500 private jets there.
Yeah, and that's not
shit.
Yeah, and that doesn't include all the SUVs and tanks and everything else. They got to get them to that forum in the first place. Yeah, it's hypocritical.
It's absolutely. We have a new, ruling class of elites that, we've got to bring them down a size somehow. So hopefully the world will wake up to that shit. Oh, it was Murray Rothbard I was talking about. He is, whenever I've heard him speak, in old videos, he can talk about things in a complex way, but he takes complex subjects and makes them really simple with logic and reason. Which you don't hear too many, bankers or especially, the Fed head and Yellen and all those guys.
Got a super chat. I got a chat for you.
Nice.
Can you see it?
We walk the same deck plate, Steve. Ah, no shit. You're on the Shitty Kitty too. 98. Wow. I was actually there from... Man, I was on the ship in late 90, 91 to 93, I think. Wow, no cool. Oh, that's awesome. Hey, got some old shipmates there.
Well, the other thing I want to talk to you about is shrinkflation and explaining what exactly that is. Now, what I know about it is you buy a bag of chips. Mm-hmm. Instead of it being the weight was 2 weeks ago, they changed the weight, but keep it at the same price in the same size bag.
I bought a bag of, trail mix the other day here, and I'm in, where am I? In Southern California, it's north of LA, and at an Albertsons, and it was like $9 for a bag. And I remember when I first got here, there was about this much stuff in there. The price was the same, but the amount just kept going down. But they had the same size bag, But what they're trying to do in many of the areas is shrink the box, shrink the amount, but keep the price the same so that, hey, everything's okay. No, it's the quality has gone down. I used to buy this amazing, what was it, ginger brew at Trader Joe's years ago. And I just remember it had this really strong bite to it. And the last time I tried it, after coming back from Germany after 15 years, it was just totally bland. The product quality has gone down. So it's not just size, it's also quality. I mean, the same with home building, so many different things.
The other thing that got me is Yellen, who is the she's part of the Biden administration. I believe she's Secretary of Treasury. And she, like 3-4 months ago, she was saying that this inflation was transitory, which means it's, in plain English, it's coming and going. It's temporary, right? Because of certain things that are happening in the world. Mm-hmm. And I was like, my first reaction was like this: it's not transitory if you keep doing what you're doing the oil field. And it's not transitory if you keep on printing money. Yeah. And thus, what's happened now? They're trying to push that. Oh, it's because of Putin or Russia. It's so on and so forth. Now, do I think some of the inflation's caused from it, such as with food, with like wheat and stuff? Maybe, but not as much. Not as much as it is when it has to do with the amount of money we've printed, and also with oil and gas.
Exactly. Unless you see the details, facts are, when we listen to government, the bureaus, the Federal Reserve, the bankers, their economists, they're always wrong. And when they always use this excuse, nobody could have seen that coming. I've been listening to Peter Schiff for about 17 years now, and he was predicting the 2008 collapse years in advance.
Yeah.
And you could go onto YouTube and look up Peter Schiff is right, and everyone's just laughing at him, making fun of him, berating him, putting him down. You don't know what you're talking about. And then all those people disappeared, and he was still there after 2008. And he just explains it simply with Austrian economics. You can't just expect to, create something out of nothing. You can't push things into a direction without some balance. And, it's just always the same story. But, when are people going to wake up and learn that, these people that, just because they get a degree doesn't mean they have any wisdom. What's really amazing about, let's say, the potential of Donald Trump being able to come back and rectify the current financial state of this nation. He actually was a business owner going through bankruptcy and came back.
Yeah.
What is happening with America? We're going into bankruptcy. Who would be able to help us? A pure politician, lying sacks of crap, or
a lying lawyer,
right?
A lying lawyer like Biden, right, who wasn't even good lawyer. He lied. Every chance he gets, he lies when he's on camera. And then if you look at if you look at his past, when it comes to some of the stuff he's written, they're lies too, because he's copying from other people. He's plagiarizing.
They were plagiarizing years ago.
Yeah.
That's what's great about, video content and all the stuff that's popping up showing how hypocritical these people were. I don't think we can trust anybody 100%. We never know what somebody's, true agendas, what's going on. I've watched some stuff about Trump from years ago, and he did things that were egotistical, when he had, I think when Koch was taken, or the city in Manhattan was taking 7 years to redo a skating rink in Central Park. And, Trump did it in a matter of months. And he told the guys that were doing the work, hey, you're going to get, if you do it for free, you do it for, a lower cost, you're going to get all the publicity. And then he took the publicity. Now, hopefully that was only because he was a younger, untempered man. And, I believe that he wants to go down as the greatest president ever in the history of America. And if he takes down the deep state, the central bank, which, Andrew Jackson on his dying bed, was saying, I killed the bank, and then turns America around from being a debtor nation to, a creditor nation, bringing back the, hard back currency, if that much can get done, I can imagine he would, die in peace, going, you know what, hey, I did some really bad, some terrible things before that I'm not proud of. At least I could die in peace now, and maybe that's how I see it. Maybe that will happen.
The other thing I think that would have to happen if he gets reelected is he needs to shore up the oil field and try to help them reestablish back the way they were before Biden got in there. And the only way I think he could be able to do that is by using the Defense Production Act. And
that would be the proper use of it.
Yes, that would make sense.
Right.
I think you could use it for obviously helping build pads for the oil field, as well as help build oil refineries and help build nuclear plants. that would be the things that would make the most sense in order to cut down cost or cut down people's costs on power for their house and also gasoline for their car. If you do all that, I think you'll see a big old boom in the United States.
Sure.
Yeah.
As well as with manufacturing. I mean, as soon as the dollar does collapse, which it has to sooner or later, when Russia and China, start selling their dollars, at some point they're going to do that when they connect their currencies to gold. At some point, gold and silver are going to revalue. If you look at a long-term chart, both gold and silver in 40-year cup and handles, which is a typical bullish trade or pattern, I should say. And most of the guys I listen to, Mike Maloney, Peter Schiff, so many others, fundamentally, it has to eventually revalue. When that happens, I believe these other countries are going to go, back their currencies up with gold. And when that happens, there'll be this transition, I don't think it can happen overnight where all of a sudden everything's just fine. It may get really, really rocky where we'll need to have extra cash, need to have gold and silver on hand, or using cryptocurrencies or some ways of barter, having extra bullets, alcohol, cigarettes, whatever you could barter with just to be safe, on the safe side,
Redneck Veteran, the strategic reserve are about 50%. Now they are releasing more daily. Wow. Yeah, they're releasing about 1 million barrels a day to Europe.
And I was just listening to Lauren Boebert, and who was the other girl, the blonde-haired woman?
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Marjorie Taylor Greene. They are getting ready for impeaching Biden.
Yeah.
And that is going to be an impeachable offense, that he got rid of the strategic reserves to lower the price.
Yeah. No, he did. I think he did it actually he gave all that oil he gave to Europe in order to make them get off of oil from Russia. And the thing is, Russia.
Well, that's what he really did after he said he was going to try and do it to lower the prices.
Yeah, that's what he actually did with it. But Russia, I believe it was a couple months ago, they told these countries that are part of NATO, they were still buying oil from them. Hey, if you're going to buy oil from us, you're going to have to get an account that only deals with rubles.
Yeah.
And they did that directly to fire a warning shot to the United States. Hey, we can play this game too if you want to do sanctions. We can play it. And I'll tell you right now, the sanctions and everything else that we've done on Russia has backfired and hit us just as bad as it's hit them.
Right, but we weren't the only ones doing that. It was mostly Europe, and Europe buys a ton of oil. I mean, Germany gets 60% of its oil.
I'm talking about the other sanctions too, like going after their banks, which with the SWIFT stuff, which didn't make sense. I was like, at that point, if you go after the SWIFT banking, that means they can't pay their debt. That means they're going to have to relinquish their debt. And what happens? Who's going to have to pay for it? We are, because we're going to have to print more money to pay for that.
Well,
it doesn't make sense.
It does. All these things that have been happening only make sense when you're looking at it as a strategy to create war.
Yeah.
To create a world war, to make America weak so that we get defeated, because Americans with weapons stand in the way of tyranny. And, the Constitution as well, I listen to the X-22 report very often. And this guy, the way he just thinks through these patterns of, seeing how things are moving in a certain direction. The only thing that makes sense is that the deep state wants to take America to war and lose, so that we lose our Constitution and that the world can be more easily brought into a totalitarian system,
Now, here's another message. What about our military? Don't we need those reserves for them? That's exactly what it was made for.
Yeah. Exactly.
So let's say something happens, because I don't know if you've read about what Putin and Russia said. Russia didn't say it. United States said it to Russia. If you hit the ships that have any of the grain that's in Ukraine that's actually been blockaded there, if you hit them with any missiles or anything and sink them, or anything happens to those ships, that'll be an act of war. And the reason they're saying that is because that grain right there can feed at least 40 million people. It's actually supposed to be going to Africa to help with the drought and also the famine that's going on there.
Right.
And hopefully to keep from a whole bunch of people dying there. And they're saying if you accidentally hit this, it don't matter if it's an accident or on purpose, it's gonna be an act of war. And I think what I think it is just more bravado by this administration trying to go Putin into a war, into a world war. That's what it looks like to me.
I mean, to bolster or get involved, to bring NATO to bring Ukraine into NATO would instantly, create a world war.
Yeah, so, and didn't you have I believe it was Sweden and Finland. They're trying to get into NATO, and right now Turkey's blocking that because Turkey sees as an escalation in this conflict. They're like this. They're on the border of Russia.
Right.
The problem with Russia with Ukraine was we were talking about them joining NATO, which wasn't going to happen anyway. But and now you want to get these two countries to join, which they have been known as being neutral for the last 200 years. And now all of a sudden you want to change their policies and have them join NATO.
Probably.
What do you think Putin?
I think it's more deep state. Sorry.
What do you think Putin's going to say about that? He's not going to be real happy about it.
No, it's really interesting because, Mike Maloney had a video where he was saying we can understand why Russia in general, or Putin, we use him as a figurehead, but, people who are running Russia and Russians in general, why would they feel threatened? And, we got to look at things from both sides. I don't really care to look at things from a liberal perspective, but it's very important that we understand their thinking. And, NATO has just been moving closer and closer and closer to the border of Russia. And, that would be like Russia moving up to Cuba and, to Mexico and through Canada, coming at us, being right on our border. So for them to feel threatened or to, state things in a way where they're letting, don't push us, just don't push us, stop where you are, don't come any closer. They've been warning us, and they've been warning, Europeans and Brussels, but, with Biden in the White House, he wanted, yay, World War III.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, with the World Economic Forum, what Klaus Schwab and, lately, what's that guy's face? George Soros. It looks like we are heading into World War III, no shit. Keep poking the bear and you're going to get attacked.
Another thing George Soros said that got me was he said that what needs to happen is Putin and Xi Jinping, who's the president of China, needs to be replaced. And I was like, oh, they're not going to feel threatened by that.
Yeah.
A billionaire who's been affecting people, affecting all sorts of countries' elections are saying, hey, we need to replace these two dictators. How do you think they're going to react?
Exactly. Well, I love how Ron Paul and, Murray Rothbard and Austrians, talk about that the best way to prevent war is do business with people, trade goods, take a loss, don't get taken advantage, like how China's taken advantage of us for years. But we were pushed in there through inflation, through moving businesses over there. And then these guys steal our technology. But in terms of, and I wanted to answer that question, in terms of how do you prevent war, trade, but Trump was able to walk across the DMZ. He's had interesting conversations with people and, we've got to get to that. And to answer that question, come November, we got to vote like crazy to get rid of the administration that's there, or to change Congress and the Senate to where we can impeach Biden.
Well, the only thing is, the only person you can impeach is Biden. Now you can impeach like certain members of the administration, but you can't impeach the whole administration, which is unfortunate.
Right. But in terms of getting rid of them, if that's what you mean, they're going to be caught in crimes against humanity, the border crisis, which is crimes against humanity, human trafficking, all the corruption. I mean, I'm sure Space Force and others have been tracking their finances. All the whole reason Ukraine was, under Biden's watch when he was vice president and allowing Hunter to go in there, was doing shady business deals where we could give them aid and most of that comes back into their back pocket. So graft, to prove the graft, which they just need to go find the records of where the money went. Every piece of legislation they created where they sent capital, taxpayers' money or debt over to different people, and how it came back to their pockets. Absolutely, we can put them in prison, get rid of them. But it's not only the graft. From what I was just listening to, the geo tracking that has come out in 2000 mules. I mean, I hate to have one of these. I really want to go back to an old style phone. They've been tracking these other people as well. I mean, they've been tracking Kamala Harris and all the corrupt people. They've been tracking Pelosi and everyone else, gathering the data, because what it's going to come down to probably in the next few months to 6 months is a military tribunal. Where these people there, that Durham and all these white hats have collected all the data, letting them commit these crimes to make it a open and shut case where all these people go to prison.
Well, I don't know if that's going to happen or not. That's,
I'm an optimist.
In my opinion, I think the military-industrial complex is in on it with them. I think they're part of the deep state more than anything else. I mean, the deep state started with the military. Now the people that are like in the lower rankings, they're not part of it, obviously. Right. But when you're talking about like General Milley, people like that, they are.
Right.
I don't hold that kind of view. I don't see it that way. I think more than likely what's going to happen is there's going to be investigations in the Senate and the House. Mm-hmm. And they'll determine, they'll find out more information, such as what's going on with the Durham probe and also the probe that's going on for Hunter Biden's laptop. And I think he'll be impeached for either what's going on at the border, the reserves, like you said. I think that's an impeachable offense, and a few other things that are going on that's interesting with the Hunter Biden laptop. Mm-hmm. But at that point, then you're going to get cackling Kamala Harris in there, and you're pretty much dealing with the same. You're pretty much dealing with the same situation where she is not coherent with anything. She doesn't know nothing. She knows nothing. She got to her point in politics by her feminine wilds. Let's just say that. Mm-hmm. Okay, she didn't do that because of her gift as an ability to speak, or a gift as a politician. You know what I'm saying?
Neither was Obama.
No.
Especially when he wasn't reading, his teleprompter either.
Yeah.
No, it's just pretty amazing. I mean, I was watching one of the other comments down there. Yeah, Trump threw a wrench into all their plans, and Hillary definitely wanted to take us to war. It's interesting in listening to some comments that I hadn't paid attention, or I don't know where to find. If anyone knows where to find the billboard that has the Q posts, the information coming from, who was the one guy that is part of Trump, was part of Trump's cabinets? He keeps posting things, videos with a timestamp, and the timestamp relates to a post. And it just is so uncanny to hear the information about the plan that's going on behind the scenes. And in just hearing and seeing how things are starting to happen in a certain direction and literally moving in a positive direction where, more and more parents are taking over the school boards. There are more and more, laws to protect the way the voting is going to go next. Information starting to come out about, the voting machines. Things are moving in the direction. As it gets worse for, in general terms, with inflation and, 10,000 migrants moving up to the border, it seems really scary. But again, in the spiritual world and in the physical world, things got to get worse before they get better. We have a fever to deal with the virus. So I do believe there is a plan happening, whether it's just, okay, some things are going to happen, where Biden's going to get impeached. I mean, that's going to happen when the Senate and Congress get taken over, with a very large majority come November. But, and seeing the geo-tracking of the mules, happened, there's just so many positive things that I just see. Could it really happen? And I do believe it could. Will it? Yeah, according to the recent past in the last 100 years, it doesn't seem like it. They always get off. But I think things are going to happen that are going to shock people,
Well, guys, we're going to have to end the show. We went a little bit over, but I hope y'all enjoy. Thank you, Steve, for coming on. And I'm going to let you have the last word before we end it.
For those, I'm not a religious person, but I do, try to believe and trust in a higher power and have faith that things are going to work out, or else I'd go crazy and be totally freaked out with what's happening now. But after being in the military and going through some really challenging things in my life, when we stick together and communicate honestly and openly the best we can and try and support each other, we're going to be okay. So thank you all for joining and posting your questions. Really appreciate that. And I appreciate you, Matt, for having me on. Thank you.
See y'all later.
Okay.